Okay. So in last session we were speaking, or we saw different types of functions, right? So we discussed about what required means, right? So required means the required number of parameters, right? So if your function uses three parameters, you have to pass three values, right? Then we say default. Default was when if function definition has a default value assigned to a variable, then you don't pass default. I mean, then in that case, it's not required, right? Because if you give it, it will take what you give. But if you don't pass the value, it will take the default one, which is assigned to the function definition. Then we discuss about keyword argument, right? Keyword are your so we assign the value to the variable while calling. So you are using the exactly same variable that we put it in the function. For example, okay, so see here, if you have, let's say, def my fun1, and let's say you have x comma y, okay, and you say um, print, okay, let's just print it, print x plus y, let's say, now if I call this function from here, my fun1, if I pass 10 comma 20, and of course if I run it, you will get 10 plus 20 30, right? Now if you declare a variable a b, okay, equal to 5 comma 6, still if you call my fun ab, okay, ab, now in this case you see ab is a different variable, okay, and it has no connection with xy. It has no connection with xy. Even if I say, you know, x comma y equal to 2 comma 8, okay, and if I call my fun x comma y, okay, in this case too, there is no connection between x and y. You can see these are variables you are using in the main program, right? That's what we discussed the other day. This is called your main program, which is from extreme left. And this is a function, right? So this x and y is not same as this x and y. Okay, there's no connection between this xy and this xy. So here, even if I say, let's say I do y comma x, okay, and if you print the value here, so it's something like this. X equal to x, y equal to y, and sum is x plus y. Okay, and let me delete this print. Oops, sorry. Okay, so x is 8. Okay, because I told you there is no connection between this xy and this xy. So I'm passing y here. So this is taking y will go to x and x will go to y. Okay, these are variables used in the main program, and these are variables of your function. So there is no connection between them. Just the name could be same, but it's no two-person can have same name, right? So this is like one person, this is like another person. Main is your another person, and this function is another function. Okay, so they can use same variable, and there's no connection between these variables. They are totally different. That's point one. Okay, so now for the keyword, okay, you can say x equal to y and y equal to x here. Absolutely no problem. This y and this x are different. This y and this y are different. Okay, this when you're calling a function, if you are using equal, if you're using keyword, left side variable has to come from here, and right side is a local variable of the function program. Okay, so what is local variable? Okay, we'll see in few seconds. Any question here? Did you understand what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to say that there is no connection, there is no relation between left side x and this right side x. Okay, left side x comes from your function definition, and right side is your variable function, variable that you are using here. Okay, so it does not mean that if I put y here, it becomes y will take the y value. You have to have equal to indicate. Okay, I can put x comma y here, right? Okay. Now with this, there is one important concept that we have to understand, which is called the scope of a variable. And of course, we also discussed about um, uh, what is that? Variable length argument. It's called them variable length argument. So here you can pass values to the function as a tuple or as a dictionary. Okay. So these are the four things that we discussed. So saying that there is one more important concept, we'll talk about it, which is called the scope of a variable. Okay. Scope means you can say as life. Okay. Scope of a variable. Okay. Okay. Now let's say we define same function. Okay. Let's use same function here. My fun one. And I have x and y here. Okay. Now, okay. Let's say I use another variable here, print g is. See, okay, so print g equal to, okay, and I put g. Obviously, g is not defined here, correct? So it doesn't know what g is. So if I run this program, it will not throw error because this function is not called yet. This function is not called yet. Now, if I pass my function xy and I give 10 comma 20, let's say, okay, and now when I try to run this function, what happens? It gives you an error that g is not defined. G is not defined. So now what I'll do, I'll say g equal to 100 here. Okay, so I'm not talking about the argument. I'm not talking about the value that is inside this. Okay, inside you have to define. Okay, either you use required default keyword, whatever, right? So now I'm using a variable inside this function, inside my function. Okay, I'm using g. Now, so in this program, which line will be the first line to be called? Which line will be called first? Which is the first line to be called when I run this program?
G equal to 100.
Yeah, line number 9. Line number 9 is the first line that will be called, guys. Okay, please pay attention. So g equal to 100, line number 9 is the first line that will be called. Then you call 10, and 10 will call line number 5, isn't it? So now when I run it, okay, see, it prints g equal to 100. It has got its own value, okay, which is 100. Now this is called as global variable. Global variable because this is used in main program, and the function definition is within the main program. Okay. Now if I declare something here, let's say I say h equal to 100 or h equal to, let's say, 70, right? And now if I try to print here in the main, okay, h equal to, okay, and when I try to run it, okay, h is not defined because h is inside this function, so it cannot go up. It's like this, okay. Your society has a park, right? So park is outside your home. So if you do not have your, so this is like main program. This is like a society. Society has a park, g equal to 100. So if you want, this is you, let's say this is your house. If you want to go to park, you can easily go to park, right? But if you have your own park here in your home, doesn't mean that everybody will come to your park, right? That's your personal, right? Nobody will come to your park. So this is part of main, okay? Inside this, now, if somebody lives inside your house, they can come in. Okay, so understand, okay, what I'm trying to say. This G is part of the bigger thing. Okay, so everything inside this will have access to G. This function is inside this main program. Okay, so function will have access to G. But if you have h here, personally the function has h, it cannot be used outside. Okay, the moment you define, from there everybody will have access to inside this. Same thing happens when you do for loop or anything. Okay, if I define something here, okay, if we'll have access to h, for loop will have access to h. Okay, okay, but if I define h here, or let's say something else, let's use some other variable, right? Y, x, let's say I use a, let's say. So now if I define a in the program, main program here, for loop and if, all will have access to a. But if I don't define, okay, let's say I don't, okay, if I define a equal to 10, for example, okay, all of them will have access to a. But if I don't define this here, then if you define if equal to 10 here, okay, for example, let's say, for loop will have access to a. But main program, when I try to print here, okay, it will not have access to a. So that's why what we do is, if you're using a variable inside for loop or if, or in, so first we assign it to 0 or something. We are increasing the scope. Okay. For example, okay, if you do not go out of your city, your scope is only within the city. Only when you travel outside the city, your scope becomes larger than city. So this, if I put it here, okay, then everybody will have access. But if I don't put it here, okay, then with, it only within this you have access. So that's why if you use a variable within, first time you're using a variable within for loop or if, okay, then when you try to work with it in the main later, you will lose the access. So what we do is we initialize it before, so that we are saying, okay, this is the global variable. Now you can use it anywhere. Okay. Similarly, in this case, if I'm using g equal to 100, this is able to access because I have defined g equal to 100 before this is called. Now, same thing if I do it, okay, if I do it after, okay, then for loop, sorry, the function will not have access. Okay, function will not have access because first line to be called is line number 11. 11 is called, goes to function. G is not defined yet. You're calling G before it is defined. So it says G is not defined, right? Now, same thing if I do it before calling the function, okay? So everybody will have access. So generally, sometimes, when you have values which does not change, like if you want to use pi value G, accelerator due to gravity G value and things like that, what we do, we define in the beginning. And generally your global variables we define in capitals, okay? Not required, mandatory, but generally what we do is we say pi equal to 3.14. Okay, so to indicate that capital letter means, it's a global variable and it will be used in multiple places within the functions also it can be used. Generally, such constants which does not change, right? Constant value you can put it here. Okay, like file name or user name, things like that you can put it here. If you think that will not change, you can put them here. And the scope of global, so this is called global variable, right? Scope is within the function, outside the function. Okay. Now here, okay, this h is called local variable. H is called local because the scope or the life, okay, of this variable within this function. It cannot be used outside. But if you are using outside, can be used by inside. So your community park can be used by you, but your personal park cannot be used by people of the other of the community, right? No, vice versa is not true. Okay. But now let's say what I do here, instead of h equal to, I say g equal to 20. Now if I run, what happens? It says G referenced before assignment. Okay. So remember this. If you do not have your own park in your house, you can use community park. But if you have your own park, then you cannot use community park. Here, when G was not there, it was able to use global variable. But now when you have G by yourself, then you cannot use global variable G. You have to use your local variable. Okay? You have to use your local variable, because if I put here G equal to 20, that means you have it your own G value. Then why should you need from others? When you have your own stuff, you cannot borrow from other. Did you get this point, guys? The first point we discussed that global variable can be accessed by functions. Now we are saying that if you have your own copy, then it cannot be accessed by the local. Third point here is, no, I want to use global variable. Okay, if you want to use global variable, mention it. So I will go here and say I want to use global variable G. Now when you run this program, okay, oops. So what happens here is, sorry, this is not how you do it. Okay, let's say if I use G here, and here if I mention global G. Okay, now you see you got global G. Because I am mentioning that I'm going to use global G for now. You have to give a pre-warning or kind of heads up, you can say. You're giving a heads up that I want to use a global G. Okay, you want to use global G, fine, you can use global G. But here if I print, after declaration, it has to be local G only. Okay. Three concepts we discussed so far, right? Global variable being used by local function. Okay. But if you have your own copy, you can't use it. But there is a mechanism to use it where you declare it as global G and then you use it. You have to specifically mention that. It's like this, okay? Your friend has a dog. Okay, your neighbor has a dog. Okay, you go and play with the neighbor's dog. So when you tell to your parents that I'm going to play with the dog, they will understand, right? Where you're going. So, okay, go and play, right? They know, they'll not ask you, where are you going? Isn't it? So you'll go and play with your neighbor's dog. But let's say now you're planning to buy a dog. When you're planning to buy a dog, and then if you tell to your parents, I'm going to play with a dog, what will they say? We have not bought the dog yet. Tomorrow we are going to buy. So how can you play today? No, no, no. I'm not going to play with our dog. I'm going to play with my friend's dog. Okay, you want to play with your friend's dog? Go and play. Right? That's the concept here. Because when you do not have, then you know that I have to use global. But if you're planning to use, okay, if you're planning to use, then you can't use it before buying it. But if you want to use before buying it, you have to mention that I'm going to use my global variable. Right? So this is important because sometimes you might, if you do not understand this concept, you will get some error. Okay, you expect something else and you might get something else. Maybe you're expecting 100, but you get 20, right? So so your program can go wrong here. This is called scope of variable. So scope means life. Okay, where all this variable is available and where all it is not available. Did you understand this? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'll move this away. Okay, so what I'm thinking is,